The Telthar Dominion fleet drifted silently through the void, its massive warships casting dark shadows over the wreckage below. Admiral Rethen stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Blood Serpent, watching the dead battlefield through the large viewing screen. This place was a graveyard of giants, thousands of ancient warships, some larger than entire cities, floating lifelessly in space. Their hulls were scarred and broken, their once powerful weapons covered in dust and ice. These ships had not moved for hundreds of years. They were relics of an old war, one that the Telthar had won long ago. Humans were powerful once, Rethen muttered to himself, but in the end, they were weak. His second-in-command, Captain Vorik, stepped forward. "Sir, the scanners showed no life signs. The wreckage is completely dead." Rethen nodded. "Good. Prepare the scavenger teams. I want anything valuable brought back to the fleet." The Telthar Dominion had ruled the galaxy for centuries, but even now, they still hunted for old human technology. Human weapons were advanced, far more dangerous than what the Telthar currently used. The Dominion had built its empire by stealing human knowledge, and Rethen was determined to take whatever secrets these ruins still held. The first wave of scavenger ships launched from the fleet, small vessels weaving through the wreckage like insects. They landed on the hulking remains of a human battleship, its name barely visible beneath layers of dust and debris. HSSTITANFAL. The airlock doors were frozen shut. The scavengers had to cut their way inside with plasma torches. As soon as the doors opened, a thick cloud of cold, dead air rushed out. Commander Zarek, the leader of the scavenger team, activated his helmet light and stepped inside. The ship's interior was a frozen tomb. Human skeletons, still in their uniforms, were scattered across the floor, their bodies untouched for centuries. "Stay alert," Zarek warned his team. "We don't know what's still working in here." The scavengers moved carefully through the dark corridors. Old warning signs in an ancient human language covered the walls. Some doors were locked, others were stuck open, revealing rooms filled with rusted weapons, shattered control panels, and silent, lifeless machines. Then one of the scavengers, Rylos, stopped in front of a massive control panel. It was covered in dust, but still intact. "Sir," Rylos said, pointing at the screen, "this ship still has power." Zarek frowned. "That's impossible. These ships have been dead for centuries." But as he looked closer, he saw it too. A faint, blinking red light in the center of the screen. A single word appeared on the display, written in ancient human text. "Awakening Pirotosio." Before Zarek could react, the entire ship shuddered. The deep, ancient engines of the Titanfall rumbled to life. A low, mechanical voice echoed through the ship's speakers. "Warning. Intruders detected. Defense systems activating." Panic spread through the scavenger team. Lights flickered on, revealing rows of deactivated war machines, tall, armored humanoid figures, their mechanical limbs covered in dust. But now, their eyes began to glow. Zarek's heart pounded. "Everyone, get out. Now." The first battle droid stepped forward, its joints creaking as it raised its weapon. Then, it opened fire. Bolts of burning plasma screamed through the hallway, cutting down 3 scavengers instantly. Zarek dived for cover as alarms blared across the ship. More droids activated, their ancient programming coming to life after centuries of silence. The scavengers ran for their lives, but the ship's security systems were against them. Automated turrets descended from the ceiling, spitting fire into the corridors. Steel doors slammed shut, trapping some of the Telthar inside. Their screams echoed briefly before being drowned out by gunfire. On the bridge of the Blood Serpent, Admiral Rethen watched in shock as the Titanfall came back to life. Its engines, once dark, burned with blue fire. Its ancient cannons, still powerful after all these years, began to move. "Sir," Captain Vorik said, his voice tight with fear, "something is waking up." Rethen's claws tightened into fists. Impossible. These ships have been dead for centuries. But the evidence was right in front of him. Across the graveyard, other ships were activating. One by one, like sleeping giants rising from their slumber, they powered up, their ancient systems roaring back to life. Then, a new signal appeared on the scanners. It wasn't just the ships. Something else had woken up. A voice, deep and powerful, came through the comms. It spoke in perfect Selthari, but the accent was wrong. Old, human, and filled with cold rage. You have trespassed where you do not belong. The bridge of the blood serpent fell silent. Then the voice spoke again. The war was never over. And now, you will burn. Before Rethan could react, the first human battleship fired. A blinding beam of energy erupted from the Titanfall's main cannon, striking a Selthar destroyer. The smaller ship did not explode. It was vaporized in an instant. Panic spread through the Dominion fleet. They're attacking. A crew member screamed. Orders, Admiral. Rethan stared in disbelief. This was impossible. Humanity was gone. Their fleet was supposed to be dead. And yet, before his very eyes, the most powerful armada in history was awakening. The graveyard was no longer silent. The ancient human fleet was alive again. And the Galactic War was about to begin. Admiral Rethan's claws dug into the armrest of his command chair as the Titanfall's beam weapon tore through another Dominion ship. What was once a silent graveyard had turned into a battlefield. All ships, return fire, he roared. The Selthar fleet unleashed a storm of plasma and missiles, but something was wrong. The human warships, despite their age, moved like predators, dodging attacks with impossible precision. Their shields, once thought dead, flared to life, absorbing every shot like they were nothing. On board the Titanfall, the human command systems awakened fully. A deep mechanical voice echoed through the ship. Battle mode engage. Identifying targets. Selthar Dominion detected. Status, hostile. Engaging. Across the graveyard, hundreds of other human warships came online. Engines roared. Cannon turrets adjusted. The fleet, once lost to time, was now under one unified command. Inside the Blood Serpent, Captain Vorik's voice shook. Sir, this isn't just one ship. They're all waking up. Rethan's blood turned cold. He had heard stories about the power of ancient humans, but he had never believed them. Now, watching these warships move like hunters preparing for the kill, he realized the truth. Humanity was never weak. They had only been sleeping. And now, they were angry. The Titanfall's weapons locked onto another Dominion battlecruiser. A single railgun shot blasted through its core, sending debris scattering. The Selthar fleet was falling apart in mere minutes. Rethan gritted his teeth. All ships, retreat. Now. Engines flared as the Selthar ships tried to escape, but the ancient fleet did not let them go so easily. Interceptor drones, once silent, launched from the human carriers, moving at blinding speeds. They cut through the fleeing ships, disabling them one by one. Panic spread through the Dominion ranks. There was no escape. Then, the voice from the Titanfall spoke again, cold and merciless. The war never ended. You will pay for what you have done. As Rethan watched his ships fall like insects, he realized something terrifying. The real war was just beginning. Admiral Rethan's eyes darted across the chaos unfolding before him. His fleet was crumbling. Dominion warships, once feared across the galaxy, were now nothing more than prey to the awakened human fleet. The Titanfall and its sister ships moved like ghosts, their ancient firepower tearing through Selthar hulls as if they were made of paper. Sir, we've lost the Iron Fang, the Stormcaller, and 4 destroyers. Captain Vorik's voice was trembling. Their weapons are too advanced. We can't win this fight. Rethan slammed his fist against the console. He had never suffered a defeat like this. Never had he felt so powerless. A sudden transmission cut through the screams and alarms. This is Commander Aiden Holt of the United Terran Defense Fleet. The voice was calm, yet filled with an authority that sent a chill through Rethan's bones. "You have invaded sovereign Terran space. Surrender your vessels immediately." Rethan's heart pounded. Terran. That word hadn't been spoken in centuries. Humanity was supposed to be extinct, their empire reduced to dust. Yet here they were, speaking as if their rule had never ended. He opened a channel. "This is Admiral Rethan of the Selfar Dominion. Humanity is gone. This fleet should not exist. You should not exist." A cold silence followed. Then Holt responded. "We exist, and we remember." The Titanfall's engines flared, propelling the massive warship directly toward the Blood Servant. Its main cannon began to charge, crackling with energy that could tear a planet in half. Vorik turned, his scales pale with fear. "Sir, they're targeting us." Rethan hesitated for the first time in his life. He had led countless invasions, crushed countless enemies. But now, staring into the abyss of this resurrected nightmare, he saw only one path. Jump to hyperspace. Now. The Blood Serpent's engines ignited. The few remaining Dominion warships followed, fleeing from the battlefield as fast as they could. Not as victors, but as survivors. As the Selfa retreated, the voice of Aiden Holt echoed one last time through the comms. "Run while you can, because next time, there will be no mercy." And then, the Dominion was gone. Rethan sat in silence, staring at the burning wreckage they left behind. He had made a grave mistake. He had woken something that was never meant to rise again. And now, the galaxy would suffer for it. Admiral Rethan sat in the dimly lit war room of the Selfar Dominion's high command, his claws gripping the edge of the table. Across from him, Supreme Chancellor Varen, the ruler of the Dominion, watched him with cold, piercing eyes. Around them, other Xelfar warlords and admirals listened in silence as the holographic display replayed the battle. They watched as the Titanfall and its fleet tore through Dominion warships, as plasma fire bounced off their impenetrable shields, and as a single human command gave the order for destruction. The video ended, leaving a heavy silence. Then Varen spoke, his voice sharp and filled with anger. "You fled." Rethan clenched his jaw. "I had no choice. Their weapons. I do not care for your excuses." Varen slammed his fist onto the table. "We were told that humanity was dead, that they were nothing more than a legend." His eyes burned with fury. Yet now, they returned from the grave, stronger than before. "Do you understand what this means, Admiral?" Rethan took a deep breath. "Yes, Supreme Chancellor. It means we are at war with the most powerful force the galaxy has ever seen." The room fell into uneasy silence. The Selfar Dominion had ruled for centuries, expanding across the stars, crushing all who stood against them. But now, the tables had turned. One of the warlords leaned forward. "We cannot let this fleet grow stronger. If they are allowed to fully recover, they will tear the Dominion apart." Perrin's gaze darkened. "Then we strike first." Rethan's eyes widened. "Supreme Chancellor, that would be suicide. We barely survived the first encounter. We will not face them alone." Perrin gestured to a nearby officer, who activated the galaxy's diplomatic map. Dozens of red markers flashed over different star systems. "The Dominion will call upon every vassal empire, every mercenary fleet, every warlord who values their survival. We will unite the largest armada in history, and we will burn them before they can rise." The room buzzed with murmurs. Rethan felt the weight of the moment. A second war against humanity was about to begin. And this time, the Dominion would bring everything they had. Deep in the heart of Terran space, Commander Aiden Holt stood on the bridge of the Titanfall, his expression cold and unreadable. Before him, a massive holographic display showed the fleeing Selfar fleet. They had retreated this time, but he knew they would return. Behind him, Admiral Catherine Vale, one of the surviving senior officers of the Terran Defense Fleet, spoke grimly. "They'll bring everything they have next time." Aiden nodded. "Let them. The bridge crew worked in tense silence. The fleet had been asleep for centuries, buried beneath the ice and dust of an abandoned world. Now their weapons were active, their ships were repaired, and their mission was clear: defend humanity at all costs. But there was a problem. "Status of our long-range scanners?" Aiden asked. An officer turned. "We've intercepted Dominion transmissions, sir. They're mobilizing every fleet, every warlord, every mercenary under their control." He hesitated. "We are outnumbered at least 50 to 1. Aiden exhaled slowly. 50 to 1. He turned back to the display, watching the blinking red markers of the enemy forces. Numbers weren't everything. Humanity had faced worse before. They had built weapons that could crack planets, fleets that could wipe out entire armadas before the enemy even knew they were under attack. And now, those weapons were waking up. "Commander," another officer spoke, "we have detected more Terran warships buried in nearby systems. Thousands of them." Aiden's eyes sharpened. They weren't alone. Across the stars, dormant human warfleets were reactivating, their ancient AI cores linking together, sharing battle data, restoring lost systems. Some ships were still buried, their crews locked in cryo-sleep. Others were already rising from their forgotten tombs. Admiral Vale smirked. 50 to 1. "I'd say that sounds like fair odds." Aiden allowed himself a small grin. The Dominion thought they were fighting ghosts. But these weren't just echoes of the past. This was humanity's second coming. And this time, they weren't holding back. Deep within Selfar space, Admiral Rethan stood in the war room, surrounded by the most powerful warlords, fleet commanders, and mercenary leaders the Dominion had ever gathered. The largest armada in history had been assembled. Hundreds of thousands of warships, battle stations, and planet-killer dreadnoughts were now preparing for war. A hologram flickered in the center of the room, showing the ancient human fleet. Rethan's claws tightened into a fist. They should not exist. Humanity was supposed to be dead, a forgotten nightmare of the past. And yet, here they were, more powerful than anyone had imagined. Supreme Chancellor Varen's voice echoed through the chamber. "This is no ordinary enemy. We are facing a civilization that once ruled the stars, a civilization that built weapons we cannot comprehend. But they are few, and we are many." He paused, his burning eyes sweeping across the gathered leaders. "We will not repeat the mistakes of our ancestors. This time, humanity will be erased from existence." A chorus of war cries and roars erupted from the room. The invasion plan was simple: attack before the human fleet could fully awaken. If they allowed these ancient war machines to recover, the Dominion would not survive. But in the far reaches of space, humanity was already preparing. On board the Titanfall, Commander Aiden Holt stood before a massive display of reactivating Terran warships. Across dozens of hidden systems, ancient human battlecruisers, dreadnoughts, and carriers were rising from their slumber. Some had been buried for centuries, their crews still locked in cryo-sleep. Others had operated in silent standby, waiting for a command that had finally come. The order was simple: prepare for war. Admiral Catherine Vale stepped up beside him. "The Dominion is moving fast. If we wait too long, they'll strike first." Aiden's eyes narrowed. "Then we won't wait." He turned to his officers. "Send the signal to all awakened fleets. We move now." The Titanfall's engines roared to life. Across the sector, thousands of Terran warships formed into battle formations. Weapons systems powered up, shields flared, and targeting arrays locked onto their prey. The Xelthar thought they were the hunters, but they had just awakened the true apex predators. And now, the galaxy would tremble. The Xelthar Dominion armada surged through the void, a tidal wave of warships stretching across the darkness. Thousands of dreadnoughts, cruisers, and battle carriers moved in perfect unison, their weapons fully charged, their commanders ready for war. This was the largest fleet the galaxy had ever seen, an unstoppable force meant to crush humanity before it could rise again. Admiral Rethen sat in the command throne of the Blood Serpent, his cold eyes fixed on the vastness of space ahead. "Scan for their forces," he ordered. "They won't stay hidden for long." The bridge crew worked quickly, scanning the empty void. The silence was unsettling. Then the alarm screamed. "Admiral, multiple contacts detected. They're already here." A holographic display lit up with thousands of red markers. But they weren't approaching from one direction. They were everywhere. Commander Aiden Holt watched from the Titanfall, standing tall as the enemy fleet came into full view. The Xelfar had brought their best, their strongest, their most advanced warships. It didn't matter. "All ships," he commanded, his voice calm. "Engage." The void exploded with light. Human warships materialized from hidden jump points, emerging from behind asteroids, planetary debris, and the darkness of space itself. Ancient dreadnoughts the size of cities unleashed hell, their plasma cannons ripping through Xelfar formations with terrifying precision. Missiles screamed through the void, shields flared and shattered, and in mere seconds, the battle descended into chaos. The Dominion fleet fired back with everything they had. Thousands of ion beams, torpedoes, and kinetic rounds lit up the battlefield. Xelfar warships surged forward, determined to break the human lines. But they were too slow. The Titanfall moved like a ghost, its ancient battle eye predicting enemy fire before it was even launched. Xelfar destroyers tried to flank, only to be ripped apart by automated defenses. Terran battlecruisers punched through the Dominion's front lines, shattering their formations in minutes. On the Blood Serpent, Admiral Rethen could only watch in horror. The unstoppable Dominion armada was being torn apart like paper. "We're losing ships too fast," a Xelfar officer cried. "We can't stop them." Rethen's claws dug into the armrest of his throne. He had been a fool. He thought numbers would win this war. But this wasn't a war. This was an execution, and humanity had never forgotten how to kill. As the Xelfar fleet began to break, a transmission echoed through the battlefield. Aiden Holt's voice was calm, cold, unforgiving. "Surrender, or be erased." Rethen knew there was only one choice left. But would the Supreme Chancellor allow it? The battle was far from over. The battlefield was a graveyard. Wreckage drifted in the void, shattered remnants of the once mighty Xelfar Dominion armada. Fires still burned in the vacuum of space, the last echoes of a battle that had lasted only minutes. On the Blood Serpent, Admiral Rethen gripped the arms of his command throne, his breathing ragged. His fleet was gone. All around him, his crew sat in stunned silence, their screens flashing red with endless casualty reports. The great Xelfar war machine, the force that had ruled the stars for centuries, had been reduced to nothing. A shadow loomed over his view screen. The Titanfall drifted into position, its dark hull untouched, its weapons still glowing from their last devastating barrage. Around it, hundreds of Terran warships formed a terrifying blockade, their cannons locked onto the few surviving Xelfar vessels. A transmission came through. Aiden Holt's face appeared on the screen. His expression was cold, merciless. "This is your last chance, Admiral. Surrender, or share the fate of your fleet." Rethen hesitated, his claws curled into fists. The Dominion did not surrender. They had ruled for so long, crushing every enemy before them. But today, they were the ones crushed. Rethen turned to his officers. "Send the order." His voice was barely a whisper. "All remaining ships, stand down." The war was over. On the Titanfall's bridge, Aiden watched as Xelfar warships powered down their weapons, their shields dropping. A sigh of relief swept through the Terran fleet. Admiral Catherine Vale smirked. They'd never stood a chance. Aiden nodded, but his eyes remained locked on the battlefield. This was only the beginning. The galaxy had long believed humanity was extinct. Now, they knew the truth. Humanity had returned, and the stars would never be the same again.